today I'm unfortunately teaching somewhere else in the real world, the geography world, but today I'm going to talk a little about online dating, about representation, identity and the ups and downs of the online world. Well, online dating is actually really difficult because I've read stories of people who have met over something advertised on the Trading Post, and I would say that the Trading Post is a classified for selling your old DVD player, but in actual fact some people have met people in that environment. It's a bit like a marketplace, I guess, in that you go to it looking to buy or to sell something. The tricky bit with online dating now is that the web means that you can really have all sorts of different interest groups and all sorts of different focuses, from the very banal and very flat, very plain RSVP, which is just for meeting your lifelong partner. It's a bit like a matchmaker, to quote Fiddler on the Roof. Online dating goes from that, from I'd like to meet somebody to go to the movies with, right up to really specialised, mainly sexual practices, but highly specialised groups. And in the lecture today, I'm sure there'll be little clips of things like people who are interested in horses, who want to meet other people who are equestrian fans like themselves. They don't want to muck about spending hours getting to know somebody. They like horses, they want somebody who likes horses, and they want to go on a date. It's a filter. I guess one of the functions of online dating is to filter out all of those people that you come across in your life who you think might be a perfect partner, and over time you find that they're not. This is a digital version of sort of analogue meeting, I guess.
My brother told me last week he met in inverted commas his latest or most recent girlfriend on Facebook. They were flirting on Facebook for several weeks, and then he said, "I'm sick of just chatting on Facebook, can I have your phone number?" So technically that's sort of a form of online dating, depending on how you define it.
It is. I mean, if like that, the example of somebody who rang up about something for sale on the Trading Post and ended up dating the person. It is a form. I mean, everything is online dating if you really want to look at that much. Theoretically, students on the cloud, I don't know if this has happened, but on our Deakin Learning software could, in actual fact, meet the person of their dream. Just no different to meeting your girlfriend or boyfriend in a tutorial. What it is just a digital tutorial room. So, is Facebook a dating site? Yes. Is it set up to be a dating site? No, but does it become one? I mean, and when you talk to students, they do talk about the idea of hooking up with friends from their friends' books. I've got people that I've never ever met physically, not partners, but people that I don't actually know that are friends of friends of friends, and I only know them on Facebook. Do I know them? I guess I do in the real world. The definition of dating, there's active dating websites. That's those that you go to, you join up, and you pay to be a member of. And then I think there's a whole cohort of sort of passive sites that are more like meeting places as well. So doing it two ways, and that's just setting up a profile which is clearly not real and just trying to observe what people do and say, so not actively participating in them. And a growing number of them allow you just simply to get on as a guest and to look at what people say. My interest is in a few things. Representation. I'm really interested in the way people represent themselves, because it's a form of PR. On these dating sites, the first thing you have to do is compete with 1,000 other men or women that might be in your postcode alone. The second thing is this whole idea of constructing an identity and looking at the sort of identity people construct for themselves as well. Because if you look at it, look at the identity I've set up, which is a bit tongue-in-cheek. I enjoy caving and NASCAR driving. That's not true, but it does make me sound much more interesting. The other thing that I've done, and almost instinctively, is I've taken a few years off my age. Not too many, just enough. 2 or 3 years is sufficient. So I'm really interested in the way people have to advertise themselves, and they have to reconstruct and package themselves through dating services to compete, really, in an open market. Now that's not so different to going out to a nightclub and wearing the best clothing you've got, being as fit as you can, having your hair cut, putting makeup on, whatever you might do, wearing lifts so you're a little bit taller. It's actually not a new thing. We've been doing it for years, but it's a form of digital plumage, if you like. But I'm interested in that as well. I guess the other thing I'm interested in on these websites is how they differ from each other. A classic example is there is a Christian Mingle website, and when you get onto that, it's very clear. You put in I am, and it says male or female, and a drop-down box comes up. And if you put I am male, all it will load is I'm looking for females. And there's quite clearly defined boundaries. And in the same way, if you go to some of the more extreme websites, there's a whole range of drop-downs, some of which you'd be completely amazed about, that people are interested in that or that it even exists. And then it gives you a range, so you actually can be quite specific about what it is you're interested in. And I'm interested in that as well. I'm knocking on from that, I'm interested in people's perceptions about online dating, whether it's acceptable. Because in the last 5 or 6 years, every lecture in ALC 101 that I teach, I do a really rough poll where I say to people, who would use online dating to meet someone? And 6 or 7 years ago, it was unacceptable. Maybe 1 or 2 hands went up. Most people went, ooh, that's for creepy old people. What's happened in the last 6 years is that people have either got more honest or online dating has become more acceptable, because people now voluntarily put their hands up to say, yes, I've got a profile on Oasis Blue, or I made that up, but on RSVP. I've used online dating, or I know someone who has. And no longer do people, particularly 18 or 19-year-olds, go, ooh, like they used to. So I'm interested in that social acceptability, that maybe it's just inevitable. As we've bought books online through Amazon, we've used the trading post to buy things, we've bought things on eBay. We're happy to accept music digitally downloaded to us now. We don't need the CD in our hands. Maybe this just is part of that digital revolution, but it's increasingly acceptable to find a partner online.
Yeah. I suppose it's going to get easier and easier to research online dating when it becomes more normalised. It would have been perhaps harder to get a survey responded to in the past, but I guess you can sort of look forward to a future of more information, more data, and perhaps easier ethical clearance too.
Well, actually, it's really interesting you say that, because in the last couple of weeks, as I've been sort of reading through, because like I said, I passively consume, but I'm not. There's no stealth or deception involved. But a growing number of people on, particularly Ashley Madison in Australia, have been putting "I do not consent to participate in any university studies," and the University of Sydney must have one running, because I can see that my data is not to be used explicitly or implicitly by the University of Sydney for any of their studies. And I've seen that now on 3 profiles. So it's obviously an area where people are interested in researching, and people are not interested in being research bunnies.
Wow.
So that could change as well. Funny you should mention it, but it has happened. That obviously people are now looking at it, and people don't want to be, as you wouldn't. I mean, it'd be like going into a nightclub saying, "Can I watch you pick up?" It's no different. I mean, it's the same thing. So there are some ethical dilemmas with it as well.
That's fascinating.
People who, the more you do online, the more you do online. You know what I mean? I'm the same. I increasingly find myself getting cross if I can't do something online. I had to fill out a form and fax it the other day. It nearly killed me. I haven't filled out a form for years. I don't know where the fax machine is. I do a lot of stuff online. I mean, I will confess that I've actually gone to Coles online and bought bread and milk when I have a 7-Eleven 80 metres from my house. The more you do online, the more you do online. So it makes sense that if you post your photos online and you tweet and that you date. That's where you'll live your life. Whether that is embedded dating, such as playing World of Warcraft with somebody that you end up in a relationship with, or the act of dating online. The concept of trust is an interesting one, because that's the tipping point at which you move from the digital to the analog, because theoretically, eventually, you want to meet the person in person, and all of a sudden, they put on 10 kilograms, and there's a film coming out which has got a little play on words about online dating, where the guy puts in a photograph of a really, really fit and very good-looking black man, and in actual fact, he's white, and the whole idea of deception. But there does come the tipping point at which you go, I'm now committed to meeting the person in person, and if your identity is not true, then what happens is that you'll be one of the people that never meets anybody in the real world. You only meet online. But it's about trust, being able to trust people. and what you got invested in as well. So if you've joined a website as a dare from a friend, and I've interviewed a couple of people who joined up at the end of my lecture only because I dared them to. In actual fact, now they're going out with somebody. So they had little invested, there was not much at risk. They didn't necessarily think that it would come to anything, and because it was such a small investment, they were surprised. But if you have got, and a couple of people I've spoken to talk about the really needy, being able to work out really quickly from somebody that in actual fact I think the expression is high needs, high maintenance. So if you've been involved for a long time and you come across as quite desperate, and there's lots of things, lots of signs and symbols that you're desperate, that you don't want to do. For example, there's a joke that if you say that you live at home and you have cats, that's a dead giveaway. That in actual fact, stay away, needy. So it's about trust, investment, and risk, because it's a risky exercise. If you do it properly, if you really get on and you are seriously looking to meet your life partner, what you're doing is you're placing yourself in a particular area of fairly high risk. If I go out to a nightclub and hope to meet the woman of my dreams, there might be 300 people at the nightclub. The worst I do is embarrass myself in front of 300 people, and maybe 10, or I get rejected, and then that's it, you go home and it's over. But when you do it in the digital world, it's quite public. The public sphere is quite big, and the risk is quite high as well.
Increased risk, but also potentially sort of a fast tracking of what might take longer in the non-virtual world, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. You might go from acceptance to rejection in a keystroke. Whereas in the real world, you have signs and symbols, and you might get a non-verbal cue that something's going quite wrong. But in the digital world, you can just simply you can just block someone, and that's it. Immediately, it happens.
And I've never started a relationship saying what my hobbies were.
Yes, yeah. One of the things that's been in the paper a little bit lately, and if students want to, they simply jump on the Age webpage or the Sydney Morning Herald, any large press, and type in the number of stories of people who have been assaulted as a result of meeting people on dating websites. And I don't know that it's a new problem. I think it's probably a problem that's been around for a while, but it's getting some increased press, so you'll find that it gets written up a little more than before. There's even been a couple of cases in the local area where I live that have actually happened. And there's also the deception, the people who use these websites for financial advantage as well. Everything comes with an up and a downside, but that might be some good research for students to do. Go and find out a dystopian, a negative story about online dating, and it won't be hard.
I think when you get to the point of having a moral panic on Today Tonight or a current affair, you're finished. Like that, it's normalised by the time it's on Today Tonight also.
You're right. If a major popular current affairs program has got footage and got it together, then you're right, the horse is bolted. But it's certainly a very big business. There are many millions of people who are currently on online dating sites, and even if a small percentage of those are genuine or legitimate, it's still an awful lot of people.